Hi, I'm Adam. I'm an information security manager, and today I'm looking to use Vigilant Software's Cyber Comply tool to carry out a risk assessment of a hot topic piece of software, ChatGPT. We'll start by looking at the use case that my organization has for this tool, and then working through the risks that are associated with the use of this piece of software within the context of my organization. Today, I've got Gary, who's going to be my co-pilot. He's going to be driving the Cyber Comply tool.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Gary. I am the product specialist and customer success manager for Vigilant Software and the Cyber Comply platform, and it will be my role on today's presentation to visualize the examples and scenarios that Adam is going to run through in just a couple of moments.
So in the context of our risk assessment, it's really important for us to understand the use cases of the software we're going to be risk assessing. So for this scenario, we're going to start with content creation for marketing emails, website and blog content, and general marketing copywriting. The second will be code creation in use of web apps and PowerShell scripts for developers to quickly be able to develop code to fix simple issues. And the third case will be an internal manager who wants to create a business case to support a solution or proposal that they would like to take to the board. Okay, so scenario one, ChatGPT for content creation for marketing emails, website, blog content, and general marketing copy. So the first thing that we need to do is identify, will the system be used for data storage or data processing? Who will use the piece of software? In what environments will they use the piece of software? And how will they be accessing that piece of software? Gary, if you can take it away and take us through the start of our risk assessment, please.
Of course, no problem. Okay, so during this process, I, as a risk manager, potentially may be bringing in the help of the information security manager to ensure that we're covering all the bases before implementing potentially something like ChatGPT, large language modeling, or something similar. On screen, you should be able to see a couple of examples that we would see to be the top of the list, and some of the examples that Adam has already been covering, such as content creation, code creation, business case creation, and all the way through to email response templates, which could be used by teams like customer support, etc. Now, we do, as I mentioned, already have some that have been pre-populated. If we were to have a look at these after the fact, we can see that we've covered everything from who is the appropriate risk owner within the organization, what the scenario is, such as content creation, marketing emails, website, blog content, etc., what scoring mechanisms we're going to be using to ensure that we have this within an acceptable area, and potentially moving forward into what controls we might need to put in place to ensure that the data that is going to be accessing, processing, etc., is going to be safeguarded up to the strict standards of the organization's requirements. Back to you, Adam.
Right, so our second scenario is using ChatGPT for code creation for web applications and software. This could be potentially utilized by under-resourced or under-skilled developers who need to quickly deploy new fixes and code without the use of other expertise that they do not have. This introduces or could introduce unforeseen vulnerabilities and threats into the source code and the software. The developers themselves, as they haven't produced the code, may not understand fully the implications of the changes that they're putting in place, which could cause other security issues or stability issues within the software. Gary, could you show us a little bit about the risks associated with code creation for web applications or apps?
It's not a problem at all. So as we saw a little bit earlier, we've got four of the main scenarios Adam's walked us through. So again, content creation, code creation, business case, and email response templates. Now, the way that we're going to handle that inside of Cyber Comply is to identify those four main scenarios as kind of the titles of what our particular threats are going to be related to. As you may be able to see, for example, we have ChatGPT here, code creation for use in web application or apps. Beneath there, we've been able to associate a known risk potentially related to this type of scenario. For example, the one that we have here is a code, it's part of our risk assessment, and its threat and vulnerability combinations are incorrect selection of test data due to software errors. What you will also be able to see further down the screen are the associated risks. So we can see a number of different code related issues. So we have everything from introduction of unauthorized or untested code, and that could be due to a failure in change management. We have additional risks, which could be introduction of authorized or untested code, inadequate or incorrect access control policies, and so on and so forth. We can do this for every single type of scenario with a related risk, whether it is code, whether it is source codes related, so that could implicate access for users, all the way down to the individual third parties. So we're talking about the actual AI supplier or provider in the instance. For example, we may have an associated risk such as inappropriate or lack of action by third parties, and that could be a vulnerability and inadequate confidentiality agreements with third parties themselves. Back to you, Adam.
And our next one is business case creation. So this is where potentially a member of staff, such as a middle manager, is looking to take a business case, put one together, to take an idea, a software solution, a purchase request that they want to make, and they need to put business case to that so they can then take to their board and try to convince them of the worth of their idea to get that support or that funding. What could happen here is that information about the organization, the plans that it's going to be doing, which are confidential, the secrets that it has in its strategies for how it's going to enter the business and the marketplace in the areas that it wants to tackle, those could be exposed to the third-party system, the ChatGPT, and then potentially exposed involuntary by the system regenerating or taking that information and then providing that in another business case, or potentially generating a business case that has used another ChatGPT user's business case to inform it, which means that that kind of unique business case that they were going to create maybe something very similar to something that someone else has already created. Gary, if you could just walk us through that in the system, please.
Of course. So again, as we can see on the screen, we do have that third scenario that Adam's just covered, being the business case creation of a business case for an internal project. Now, if we expand on the one that we've already set up, we can see some core basic details that we're going to need to cover. What we're going to show you is we're going to edit an existing one and show you the steps in which Adam, in his role as an InfoSec manager, would likely need to follow to ensure that ChatGPT or any other AI type of modeling is able to be used internally. First of all, they need to define the scenario. Now, this needs to be as clear and concise as possible. The scenario title and description are key to explaining what this risk is to the rest of the board. Moving across, we then start to move into what this risk is likely to apply to. Now, we're focusing predominantly on 27001 as that is our chosen security framework for our organization. That will then help us focus on the three items on screen, being confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We can make selections on each one of these that we believe this risk may pose to us, and then we can move into what we believe the initial risk to the business will be. Now, I'm not going to walk you through how this decision is made. Ultimately, we are scoring this risk based on zero input from an InfoSec team or someone alike. So we're going to make a determination that because of the examples that Adam was just explaining, we believe that the likelihood of this occurring is going to be quite high. AI is a very hot topic, and a lot of people are going to be looking to use it to streamline their workflow. So we're going to say the likelihood is somewhere definitely in the high impact area. The impact itself could equally be just as high. Now, using ChatGPT for something like a business case creation, the impact itself won't be catastrophic, similar to what it could be injecting code into maybe the company's bread and butter software product. So we're going to sit it somewhere happily in the middle. So confidentiality, integrity, and availability could all potentially be impacted. Moving through, Adam's position might be to also consider data subjects. If we're using AI that's going to be needing access to certain people within the organization, there's going to be some information of personnel that may be related to it. So we may choose to address that at this stage as well. We then start to come through to what Adam's final decision is going to be at this point. So that's going to be setting the response to this. Adam so far has been presented an idea that middle management want to use AI to streamline how they build business cases for board members. Now, using background and some of the functionality that CyberComply can provide, Adam has got four choices here. He can either, for better words, turn a blind eye and say, yes, we'll simply tolerate whatever the outcome is going to be. That's not a likely scenario that he's going to follow in this case. The next three options are going to be to treat the risk. That's likely going to be the option here, and that's whereby we're going to be putting controls into place to help minimize what the impact or the likelihood is going to be of this risk. The last two are transfer the risk. Not something you're likely to do in this case. There's nobody that Adam can kick the can down the road to in this particular instance. And the last one could be, in certain circumstances, Adam is going to have to make the harsh decision to say, look, we simply cannot use ChatGPT for these type of instances or processes within the business, and he can choose at this point to say we have terminated it. Or lastly, Adam could choose to terminate the risk. The reason why he may need to do this is we simply cannot accept it under any circumstances. There are no controls we can put into place to try and mitigate any potential threat or vulnerability to the organisation. Once a decision has been made at this point, if we choose to amend it, we will then have the ability to select controls. As mentioned, the controls we have access to would be 27,001, and he's able to select as many as he seems to be appropriate for this type of exercise. Moving through, we then again need to rely on Adam's either expertise or history or knowledge of this particular area. This is going to be where he's going to be marking the residual risk to his organisation. Through the use of the control, Adam may need to make an educated guess in first instances. Sometimes it's not the right first time round. We might need to wait for something to happen for us to be able to see the effectiveness of these controls. However, we now deem that with the controls we're going to be using, is going to be in a much more tolerable area for the organisation, with the goal to over time bring this into a much more acceptable area. The same would need to be done for the residual risk to the data subjects. Again, we'll put it into a tolerable section. And finally, we get to completing the risk itself. We're able to give the risk an ID. So again, we may wish to name this ChatGPT, so he's able to find it very quickly in the assessment. And lastly, we are then able to assign the owner of this particular risk. In my case, I'm going to assign it to myself. We can approve it right here and right now, or we can set a task for the risk owner's approval. So whilst Adam may be the person identifying the risk, it may be somebody else within his team or the organisation at large that will need to have final say as to the decisions being made by the InfoSec team at large. Once we save and close, this will bring us back to the page we were on just a moment ago, and what you will now see is this risk has been completed. We can see it a very quick snapshot, either via reports or through screen share, similar to what we're doing today. Adam is able to highlight this to both the manager that is looking to use ChatGPT in this scenario, or to the board members that have these concerns of whether they should be using it in the first place. The last things that we do want to show you is this is all good and well for Adam to keep it insular inside of a platform, but these will need to be presented to outside of the organisation, whether that is a third party to the organisation or, as has been mentioned a few times, the directors or even higher up the board members themselves. The way in which Adam's going to be able to do that is multiple different processes. We have built-in reports. One of them is the content report. Now, this can be uniquely customized by Adam for his audience in particular. It may be board members may just say, can you just show us the highest residual risks that we have for all of the identified risks? Certainly run a filter, the report can be produced. The more common one, which may be utilized for things like audits, whether it's an internal or external audit, for example, would be something like a risk treatment plan. We're going to show you today very quickly what one of these would look like, and it's something that VS Risk and Cyber Comply is able to complete automatically without any further input from the user. What you'll be presented with is a document that can be version controlled, which is unique for, not unique, something required for certification or audits in any way, shape or form. We will always include a key to the measurement that Adam is putting these risks against. So again, if, for example, a board member is looking at this and going, well, I don't understand what 5 very likely actually means for us as a business, the key is there. It's very clear. It simply says extensive amounts of critical data could be disclosed. Moving further down, we then start getting into the meat and bones of the assessment itself. The top ones, as we've already covered off, are the overarching scenarios. Moving further down, we then start looking at the individual risks, such as third parties, such as the code scenarios or examples that we covered off a little bit later. What these are going to be illustrated in one very clean and concise report is what asset or scenario is the risk applied to, the threat and vulnerability combination, what controls we're utilising, and more importantly, the scoring and any task assignments that are going to be set up for them.
As Information Security Manager, one of my jobs is to make sure that whenever we introduce new risks, whether that be through new software, platforms, or changes within the organisation, we make sure that we conduct our due diligence, thinking about the risks, understanding what they are, and trying to foretell what the potential problems could be, and then the due diligence of making sure that we address those vulnerabilities, threats, and those risks, and properly treat them in a way that the business can achieve its business needs, but then also do so in a safe and controlled way.
And as Adam has clearly pointed out, most organisations are aware of what they need to do. They're understanding of these are new technologies that need to have new practices in order to make sure that the appropriate risks are being identified and treated accordingly. That's why we found in Cyber Comply, not only is this going to speed up that process, it's going to be able to translate what Adam and similarly minded InfoSec managers and alike have inside of their mind and their ideas of what these risks are going to be to be able to put it into a clean and concise platform, which we've seen time and time again with a number of our existing users, has been able to save up to 80% of their time conducting these risk assessments. Click the link below in the video description, and thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks, guys.